All right, guys, we're going to make this short and sweet because this is day 2 of the OmegaBall tournament. And obviously, we talked yesterday, and now this is after one game that happened. So, for TSP and Soccer Wars joining OmegaBall day 1, what were our thoughts on the game day 1? Just real quick.
It was fast. It was intense. It was chaotic.
It was crazy.
I would like to say there was some organized chaos, but I feel like our team coming in just a little bit inexperienced. It was less organized, more chaos. But the teams we played against, we got to play against last year's reigning champions and another pretty organized team. And so, coming out of that game, we sat last night and spent a good amount of time just, all right, what were they doing well? What could we do better? But yeah, I think organized chaos was pretty much the term that I would describe it as.
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, based off of what we watched prior and what we studied up on, the amount of shots taken and stuff was way lesser than I expected. And
That's
the amount
true.
of ball possession that we were able to obtain was rough.
Way less
Yeah,
than we
way
expected.
less than what we thought was going to happen. So
Yeah.
definitely an eye-opener for sure.
For anybody that hears the background, if there is a small child-like sound, that is because we are at the Airbnb, and that is Rob right here. We got Atlas with us. So yes,
Well, it's not me. I'm not the one crying. You can clearly see that, but
it's your fault.
it is my son.
definitely
Glad we
your
pointed
fault.
that out.
Let's be clear about that.
Okay, so one more thing that we have to address. Game did not go like we wanted it to. We didn't score very many goals at all, and there were a ton of goals scored, but they weren't necessarily against us. So as a defensive side, I was like, man, I felt pretty good about the defense. We made some saves, blah, blah, blah. We were organized to as much as you could be, I felt. And then we were all kind of bummed because we came in last out of the three teams.
Yeah, as far as
And
goals go.
super bummed because it was like 11-6 to 2?
Two.
11-6 to 2. We were the 2.
Shout out Rob.
Shout
Getting
out
his
Rob.
first goal.
Yeah, dude, in front of your baby too. That was cool. That was cool.
That was a nice feeling. We sat in the podcast yesterday and talked about what we wanted to accomplish. And as I was getting that ball to score in the goal, that conversation rang in my head. I was like, yeah, baby, I did it.
Let's go.
Sweet.
Let's go. Okay, so here's the twist. So we all went to bed like, all right, we got to regroup. We got to figure out what we're going to do. We may not be in this tournament after this next game. And we got a message from the tournament stating complete opposite of what we thought was supposed to take place. And they put a focus on goal differential over the amount of goals that your team scores. So when they looked at that, we actually came in second out of the group, even though we only scored 2 goals. But we are now not necessarily out of the tournament,
Yeah.
So we got another game coming up in roughly an hour's time period, and it is a complete different mindset now. So we need to either stick with what we did last time, which we thought was not good, because all we have to do is come in second again, and then we'd be through.
Hopefully. Yeah, hopefully that's depending on what's going on right now. There's
Depending
games.
on-
The first
yeah.
game's happening right now.
Yeah.
Second game will be happening when we show up.
Yeah. So yeah.
A lot of factors.
Any thoughts on this next game?
Yeah, I don't know because I sat last night and drew up a ton of different scenarios.
It did,
One
they're
of
actually on the paper.
one of the things that we tried to come up with was like, all right, we need some sort of system of play, right? We had no idea coming into OmegaBall. Do we have a formation? Is there a set formation? Is there a fluid formation? We have experience with indoor, where indoor is like you get into formation and there's very specific patterns that you just run through these patterns the entire game. And so you're just, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, but you just discipline to the patterns. So I went into indoor mode, and so I'd start scribbling down on a notepad last night. I'm like, all right, well, if we get set up in this formation, it allows for the possibility for 3 different patterns that we could potentially run through. And so now I'm just sitting here of, all right, do I even show the rest of the guys the patterns, or do we
yeah.
just kind of keep going with where we're at? So
Casey and I went on the walk to
Little
stretch our
walkabout.
legs out, and I was talking about that with him. I was like, so do we confuse the guys with these plays, or do we kind of just roll with what we got because it worked?
For us that have all done the play stuff and played
Yeah.
professionally indoor, it's like, oh yeah, no, we can we can bring that in real quick. But for other people that haven't played at that level, it's like, oh God, I got to remember a play and when do we do this? And, like it's just too much information, I feel like, for most of our team.
100%. I can remember when I first started learning the indoor patterns.
Yeah,
it almost created, like, it was in my head more than anything. And so it definitely, I can relate to that, like, feeling of, like, overwhelmedness. Like, oh, where am I supposed to be? Oh, am I going to mess this up? And then all of a sudden my touch is off because my mentality is worried about where I'm supposed to be instead of, like, how I am on the ball. And so, yeah.
I think we give them 1 or 2.
I was going to say, so Rob came up with five different scenarios of plays to run, and I'm thinking 1 or 2 would be ideal.
Yeah.
I think 5 is going to be an overload.
Yeah, I think maybe I show them one pattern for when you have the ball in your hands, and then our
Set piece.
Yeah.
Just a recap for those that don't know Rob, this kind of puts it in perspective. We go to dinner, and we get back pretty late last night, and we get to the kitchen table, and there are like laid out documents with dotted lines and straight lines and X's and O's. And number
full
1,
field diagram.
Number 2 got the full field diagram, and it's that's how his mind works. Dude, it's like, hey, I'm gonna figure out this problem because this was not what we wanted, and like these are gonna be some solutions, and and then he weighed it up so we could like talk about them, dude. Yeah, I loved it. It
was funny, man. My wife really got to see me in my element. She like comes out of the shower last night, and here I am, just cross-legged, sitting here. I got like crumbled up pieces of paper. I'm like scratching stuff. I'm like, that's not gonna work. I'm like scratching that out and like moving that and like things around. And she's like, all right, nice to see how you actually operate. And I'm like, this is just a small taste. But I was like, we don't even have the recorded. If we had the recorded game, I'd have that up on the film on the TV right now. Rewind, fast forward, rewind, fast forward. Like,
yeah. I feel like that's a professional
total film session.
A professional mindset of like tackling the problem like afterwards. Like, okay, I'm gonna figure this out. We're gonna go through it. And it's also like a coaching mindset. Like in general, people don't see that side of coaching where you're literally going into behind the scenes where nobody's watching or anything, and you're trying to diagnose like the issue and how to tackle this game and how can I do my training session based off the result that we had. And there's so many things that goes into the coaching stuff at like a competitive level that people have no idea about. And I think that really translates like with playing professional and then going into coaching. Yeah. Okay, so day 2, we have one more game. So if we get second or first in this game, we will move on to the semifinals. And then if we don't, then there's a lot of tiebreaker stuff, I guess, that we'll have to figure out, see who's going to move on. Yeah. But if we do make it to semifinals, it will be streamed. You guys won't see this till after the fact. But when you watch this, if we make it to the semifinals, I guess we'll have to hop on here again and let everybody know how we did.
Cool.
All right. We're going to get ready, guys. Peace.
Much love.